Are you confused about what to eat, how to train, what to do? Is it all getting a bit too much? Your fitness routine is looking like a shopping list of things you try. Every time you go into the gym, you're trying a new routine and a diet each and every single week. In this episode of The Wolf's Den by Enterprise Fitness, we are going to be smashing and debunking many of the fitness myths that need to die. I am joined by James Kelly, the Kelly of the James, Enterprise Manager, and Tyrone Felonio.
Yeah,
Disaster.
Let's practice again.
I give up. I'm done. I'm out of here. Felino for all those listening at home and in their car and wherever you're doing.
Yes, he's been here for 5 years and I haven't been able to say his name. It's almost as good as Aldred or Aldred.
Aldred.
Yeah, but that one's weird. Like your background's actually Italian. That's the worst part.
I still call him Aldred. Yeah, Aldred. Anyway, let's get into fitness myths, not about my pronunciations of names and dyslexia. So you can only eat 30 grams of protein at any one time. Now that myth has been persist for some time. It came from, I believe, a study that was done on a external, what they built was a external kind of digestive tract, and they tested 30 grams of protein, and that was it.
Are we talking food 30 grams or macro 30 grams?
30 grams. Have you heard that myth?
There goes my double meals. Yeah, this is an old one.
A very old one.
Is this still around?
Yeah, that's still, because people go, I can only eat 30 grams of protein per meal. It's all the body can absorb. No, that's what the study, they tested with 30 grams of protein. That's not to say you can only absorb 30 grams.
Take some more Zymgest.
50 gram serve.
Yeah, it's not much at all. Yeah. If that was the thing, let's say for me, for example, I weigh 90 kilos and you're getting nearly 200 grams of protein at only 30 gram serves, I would be,
a lot of
I'd be eating all day, non-stop.
Yeah, so eat your protein, folks.
Yeah, that's just,
right,
it's not a thing anymore.
The next one, cardio is the best form of exercise.
Agreed.
Coming from a soccer player.
Why?
Hang on, but you deadlift 200 kilos.
Yeah.
You've done more than
Look.
200 kilos.
Yeah, you've done more. And you bench 140.
Yeah, that's probably impressive.
Yeah. But look, I don't think, what was the myth?
Cardio is the best form of exercise for body composition.
No, definitely not, right? I think it has its place. I probably think it's more important than what you two do.
No, I'm a convert. I'm a convert.
Tyrone's only 7 days a week.
I'm a convert.
Stefan, Eisenef.
Since I've been having to do cardio for the last 12 weeks, no, like 14 weeks straight.
Why are you a convert?
There is a lot of research and studies coming out that it does improves recovery, higher VO2 max improves recovery, then also allows for more work to be done within your strength trainings. And you know what? I think you look at the proof, there's a bit of proof in the pudding. And if I look around just here, you look at James, who plays soccer, has a soccer background. You look at Maddie, has a soccer background. You look at Cristiano, has a soccer background. Have incredible physiques, but also recover really well and get really fucking strong. I get really strong, but I'm just, I don't have a physique that looks as good then. And I've been doing cardio for, whether it's been 5 days, 3 days, it's only 3 days at the moment, for the last, 12 months. And my HRV's gone up in a good way. So it's gone up to, it sits around 50 now. Yes, it's not as good as yours. We know that. But my recovery's better. My sleep's better. I'd probably say my mood's a bit better. I don't know. When you go, my mood's a bit better. I don't have to listen to...
That could be the medication though too.
But even little things, like I noticed, like even the music I listen to, like I trained with a podcast the other day. I could never train with podcasts. I was actually deadlifting this morning with podcasts on. I was like, this is weird. Whereas normally I'd need like huge amounts of heavy metal.
So in saying that though, it's important up until a point. Like if you like the way you were with your conditioning, then it's obviously a lot more important than compared to say James. So I think when we look at cardio, I always go back to for what purpose. Context, it's the classic context versus content. Cardio is important, yes, but for body composition, you need to have muscle mass, and what's going to build muscle mass is your weight training. But what's the constraint? Is your constraint, say for you, which you've been training for a long time, your constraint is your ability to recover. So therefore, cardio does take a higher precedent, whereas for me, I don't feel like my ability is to recover. It's my joints at this point in time.
Elliptical. It's good for my joints too. I just get an elliptical. Yeah.
I can just imagine Mark on that.
Elliptical.
That'll be a sight to see.
Man, when I was prepping for
Netflix
shows,
time.
like when I did comps like 20 years ago now, I did a lot of cardio. I've done my hours of cardio.
Yeah, but there's no Netflix back then. It's different now.
It was different because all you had was your brain, and you just you had a Walkman that would go flat at a certain point, and you
what?
I
know what it is, but I'm just trying to reiterate on how old you are. The fact that you
I think Amy and Maddie and stuff will listen to this and be like, "What's a Walkman?"
What? Yeah, you had that, and then yeah, no, but I look great for my age. I mean, 105. It's pretty good. Diet works.
Wow, I'm not even going to touch that.
Actually, I am older than you.
You are
But
older.
you look older than me.
I feel like I'm starting to look younger now that I've been doing cardio. But on your point, I think with cardio, it goes alongside strength training a lot more now, and I'm for that to put along strength training much more now than I used to be. Whereas just do strength training. That old, I remember when you remember when treadmills used to have like zone 1, zone 2, zone 3.
Yes.
That's coming back again.
Yes.
And the zone 2 is like really shown to increase recovery and obviously VO2 max, and that does help with, I think, with the oxidation of fat cells and whatever else. But I have found it to be a lot more important to put alongside.
It complements it nicely.
Yeah, compliments. But not only that, I think as well, like I've got a client who's an emergency doctor and he enjoys running. So I've actually found that putting that in actually helps reduce his stress levels. And then he's actually had better body composition from that. And then we're able to give him more food as well because he's training more. So he enjoys that runner's high. So like, why take it off him? You enjoy it, but you're training 4 days a week here, so go for it.
I think even aside from body comp, if we look at just the physiological things it can improve. So if we look at things like blood pressure, chances of heart disease, these types of things, just improving overall mortality rate, it has a pretty big place as well, I think. And then Tyrone said it complements strength training, I find, in terms of that recovery time, being able to get rid of byproducts a lot faster during your sessions, those types of things.
It's certainly not completely bad.
No.
If someone had 4 hours a week in their training and they need to build muscle, we're not including it. Fair to say? Maybe.
I would
three
include
and
a little
one.
bit.
Three
I
and
would
one.
include a little bit for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
I just tell people to buy a treadmill now,
By what?
but just buy a treadmill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why don't you just go for a run outside?
Well,
In the elements.
yeah, it could be raining. You're in Melbourne. We're in
Bit of
Melbourne.
vitamin D.
Yeah, but okay, but if you look at someone who's busy, like for me last night, I was on my treadmill downstairs. Yeah, last night I was actually, because I was busy all day and I had the kids and I really didn't want to go outside because it was cold. So I went downstairs.
Convenience in the winter months.
Convenient.
I feel like you.
And I still got my
you
heart
want that
rate up.
aero bike thing though, rather than the treadmill. Yeah.
I got an air bike and a rower at home, and then
You
We
like
said,
the,
yeah,
I got a bro
I've got
anyway,
the
so-
basics. James has got the next level.
You would go aero bike over treadmill.
it depends how I'm feeling. I think air bike's just convenient because it's in my garage, right? And if I got to run, I got to go outside, which in the cold
Well,
months
if you're
is a bit
feeling
much.
good, you go for a run. If you're feeling bad, you go for aero bike.
Oh, not necessarily if I'm feeling bad. Just weather is
I like the air bike though.
isn't it? Is a.
It's because it's harder.
No, it's nice. But for intervals, I find it really good for
I think.
intervals.
Look, the benefit with an air bike is you remove a lot of impact on the joints, right?
Yeah.
Which for some people, if they're doing heavy strength training, can be very beneficial. So things like the rower and the air bike can be useful to minimize more load through
How
the
often
joints.
do you row?
How often do I row?
Yeah.
Not super regularly at the minute because I'm running 3-4
You
days a
get
week.
the fan effect from the air bike too. It cools you down.
Yeah, that's it. Sometimes I'll use the air bike as like a recovery method after I play as well, just to turn the legs
You
over
might
and
even
get
say
some
it's
blood
his
flow.
only fan.
But yeah, I think to maybe close this subject off and move on to the next one, I think it has its place. I don't think it's inherently bad, or it's not bad at all in my opinion. I think there's lots of things that it does improve if you have the ability to incorporate it alongside your strength training. I think it will improve your gains in the gym, whether it's strength or hypertrophy. And yeah, that's what I've seen from using it myself and incorporating it with others.
The only other thing I would add to that is your cardio routine should complement what you're doing in terms of your strength routine. What I mean by that is if you're training for maximal strength, then your cardio really should be sprints rather than long distance in that phase. You're like, oh, I don't know about that. Whereas if you're training for
questionable.
bodybuilding and you want that hypertrophy benefit, then complementing the energy system that you're working with your hypertrophy. So for example, instead of being alactic, you move to lactic with its bodybuilding. That's one of the adjustments I made in terms of strength. And I did find that complemented my strength training a lot. Like I got a real increase in gains when I was like training for max load, 1RMs, etc., doing more of my cardio based in sprinting versus if it's hypertrophy body composition, well, that alactic, so it's 40, 60 seconds work. So it's versus say 100 meters versus 400 meters, essentially. So complementing, or even 800 meters in some cases.
I don't necessarily, sorry to jump in, I don't necessarily disagree, but I think you would then have to manage, because if we look at sprinting, right, it's a percentage of 1RM, like you do a sprint, it's supposed to be max effort, no different to lifting heavy. So then you would have to manage the nervous system fatigue if you were doing a couple of sprint sessions a week alongside heavy lifting as well. That would be my only kind of thing to
if you're a
melt on the
noob
side.
at sprinting like I am,
That's
doesn't
it,
really
right?
matter because you're not getting
not
anywhere
really-
near your 1 RM.
It
max.
wasn't really a sprint, was
Yeah,
it?
it's cardio.
It
That's
was
all
a
it is.
plod.
20 seconds later.
So we all agree it's beneficial.
It's beneficial.
It's beneficial.
Good. Yeah. Not a solo. Just do both. Just do both.
Just do both.
Yeah, just do both.
A little bit of each.
But a bit more weight training.
Sprinkle
Yeah.
of this, sprinkle of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not as important as weights. James, as important.
No, I think. I think.
And this is why the
even
myth
Stevens.
persists. Because it's not black and white.
No,
It's not. It's not. And I'm really on the fence. Even one of my last programs, I was on the sled. I know a lot of the guys that listen to this that work here don't believe that I'm on the sled. But I was on the sled before I was doing deadlifts. I can't remember the exact reason
Backward
for
sled?
it. No.
Forward sled.
Yeah, sprints.
Oh.
But as an A series, and then I was doing B series 3 to 5 deadlifts. I can't remember the reason.
Juicy.
Stefan told me, but I can't remember.
Because your heart needed to beat again. That's what it was.
Yeah, but then I was doing low intensity steady state on my other days. So just do both. Do both.
On myths being black and white, what do you think about carbs being bad in a fat loss phase?
In a fat loss phase, I think calories matter. In a fat loss phase, and I think, but you know what? There's a lot that goes into this, and I think going along with even my experience with my last two coaches is it depends on the person as well. And I know you and I have touched on a lot on the team with this a lot lately, where just because studies have shown, the body can handle store about 500 grams of carbs, plus 100 grams in the liver. It doesn't mean that you can bump everybody up to nearly 500 grams of carbs and then keep the rest of their calories down. I for myself, for instance, do much better, pretty much a 30-30 split. So once my protein's accounted for, I then do bowl with reasonable, it's about 1 gram per kilo of body fat. Of fat
The WOG ratio.
The WOG ratio, yeah.
I found the same thing.
Yeah, I'm pretty much even
Europeans,
split.
The WOG ratio.
The only time I did really well high carb was when I was training with Liam. But that was because I was just brutal workouts.
Yeah, long
and it was literally like I could feel the carbs just being depleted. But I think it's important, it's not that carbs don't make you fat, carbs don't make you lean. Although if you're doing a photo shoot, you do need to introduce carbs towards the end, or if you're coming up to comp, right? Really important, right?
Really?
Yeah, if you are going to pull those carbs away, I just rode a peak week yesterday. I can tell you straight off the bat, you do need to bring those carbs in towards the end. And also try sprinkle a little bit of sodium in there because that helps shuttle the carbohydrates into the muscle, right? But also make sure you've got a good potassium balance.
That sounds like
That's a
science.
key tip.
That sounds like science, not bro science.
No. I try.
Yeah, I've got a good example of carbs being super beneficial for body comp with Ari at the moment. So I've had Ari on a pretty aggressive deficit for the last 4 weeks.
We can tell.
So yeah, no,
I
we
like
sure
him on a
can.
deficit.
He's very quiet.
He's very quiet. Keep
Hi,
him as a
Ari.
Sits behind reception with us. But no, back to the point. So he's been on a relatively aggressive deficit for the last 4 weeks, getting him ready for a photo shoot. Now, he got to the point where I could see his energy was starting to really taper off. So like I could see his mood was changing, his energy was dropping, his training intensity wasn't as high. And what I opted for was giving him a 2-day refeed over the weekend. And when I say 2-day refeed, I just bumped his carbs up on both days. And lo and behold, extra carbs, he dropped about 1 kilo of body weight and about 0.7% body fat by just introducing more carbs. And he was still in a deficit, but we just increased his carbs.
So you know what I'm going to do right now? Now I'm going to bust that whole magic thing as well because we all know it's not magic, right? And everyone's going to go, oh, it didn't work. I tried, it didn't work. Okay. What's happening there is a couple of things. Is one, you're increasing the carbs, and then he's going to train harder, right? So he would have had some great sessions, right? Also, by increasing the carbohydrates, his cortisol levels would come down. So his body would have been under an immense amount of stress for the last 4 weeks, right? So a lot of that inflammation's come down, right? Therefore, he's dropped a lot more body fat, and in turn, he would have upped his NEAT as well. So he would have become just a lot more fidgety. He would have come to life, as we actually all did see him come to life. So that's where, although there's a lot more, there's missing out going, but refeeds don't work. But yes, they do.
Well,
There's
where
no science
with
behind them.
refeeds is they go, I mean, it's always that bell curve, right? You want to eat enough so you can bump up and get out of that not homeostasis, it is homeostasis. It's a hermetic adaptation.
Yeah.
You want to bump that out of that hermetic adaptation, but you don't want to go so far that you spill over. So it's kind of a game of what you can get away with. And the other thing I would say about carbs is that, and the reason why it's so integral for fat loss and for performance, is because 1 molecule of glucose equals 32 to 36 units of ATP energy. And what do you use when you're strength training? ATP energy is the first 0 to 20 seconds of fuel source that you're going to have when you do anything. So if you take away glucose that's going to energize essentially what the main energy substrate of what you're going to use when you train, then of course your workouts are going to suck. And what do you need to change body composition? You need to have great workouts. Otherwise, so I always find with carbs, and even the thing is, like, if you go and look at athletes who are super pro, like keto, for example, and then they talk about cyclical keto, which is basically just timing your carbohydrates around your workout. Why did they figure out, oh, actually, I should probably time my carbohydrates around my workout? Because of the exact physiological reason I just said.
Energy?
You need energy, 100%. And the preferred fuel source is, and don't get me wrong, for those who are keto advocates, the main function of a keto diet and where it really applies is if you have epilepsy, keto diet's the way to go. And there is a lot of research that shows that if you have epilepsy, keto diet will help manage your seizures. Now, for everyone who doesn't have epilepsy and outside of that and who wants to perform, then carbohydrates are absolutely going to be beneficial to your performance because of fundamental physiology of fueling that ATP energy system. And you're not going to get out of that. The other thing in terms of what we're talking about, and I've had the same thing where I've had competitors who they weren't making any one example always comes to mind is Karim. He wasn't, 3 weeks in a row, he was at 7% body fat. And I'm like, and then for 3 weeks in a row, I brought his calories lower. And to the point where he was having like barely any carbs. And then I said, all right, we're not getting where we want to go. I can't take any more out. Let's give you that refeed. He earned the refeed. In a week, he ate, like I increased his fat, increased his carbs. That next week, he went to 5% body fat. He didn't just lose 1%, lost 2% and broke through that plateau. And again, it's that busting that hemetic adaptation. But again, the key thing is you don't want to be introducing, when we say carbs, it doesn't mean go eat a bag of lollies. Or a pizza. It means let's increase a manageable source of carbohydrates under a measured, controlled environment, but it is more than you normally eat. But it's not a buffet. It's not a free for all.
And that's again why you generally find that competitors, for instance, will tend to lose more body fat and more weight when it comes to peak week because they have been depleting, and then you start to bring those carbohydrates in, and they just start to lose a bit more, and you kind of chase it, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I've got that with mine at the moment. It was that too late to go for a refeed because obviously peak week starts tomorrow or Monday, but at the same time, this is probably what's going to happen anyway. It's going to bring those carbs in come the start of the week, and you're just going to start to drop as we go through.
Before we move to the next myth, I need to say my most carbs consumed before a comp I've ever seen was by Janet Kane before the A&B, I think it was 2008. She had an ice cream container full of Crunchola. I don't know if they even make Crunchola anymore. I think it was two boxes. And she ate the whole thing. I think it was she started eating at about 6 p.m. and ate it, and then the rest of it that morning. So 2 boxes of cereal, and she was...
I think I know someone who's better at that.
Yeah, I can top you.
I'll go first.
Yeah, go.
And it was actually one of your clients. He might not have ever told you. I thought he might have, though.
Yeah.
So when you train Chris for his comp in the Gold Coast, the night before he had a 12 box of Krispy Kremes and a full bottle of red wine. I got up on stage the next day and won.
No, I didn't tell me. Really?
Yeah.
Trust Chris to
mine's my unicorn.
That's a lot of carbs.
My unicorn. One of ours, Cristiano. 800 grams.
Wow.
Of programs. And I think we even added more in 800 grams.
That's a lot of carbs.
What was that? That's a lot of carbs.
Yeah.
How did you break that down?
What's that? That's 10 grams per kilo.
Yeah, how did I break it down?
He ate 800 grams of carbs. That's why when you say 800 grams of carbs.
Okay, so his photo shoot prep contained a hell of a lot of chocolate sorbet. It was like honey, chocolate sorbet.
Because it's easy to eat.
Easy to get down. And it was basically, even on the peak week, I was like, okay, before the peak week, because he was consuming so many carbohydrates, I was like, tell me what you feel best on. Tell me what you train best on.
I want to do prep with you.
Tell me what gives you the best pump. I think he had chocolate sorbet in the morning of his photo shoot.
You know why? Cardio.
Was it?
It's that soccer background.
All right, we'll probably move to the next.
I'll just wrap us up. The way I like to explain this to clients is we obviously have our baseline calories, which is our BMR plus our activity. And then we have our BMR, which is essentially the cost to keep the lights on, if we want to look at it that way.
That is good.
No,
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
To keep the lights on,
I'm going to steal that.
Now, if we sit below that BMR for too long, that's what the amount of energy our body needs to just run the daily functions, right? So if we sit below that for too long, then the body has to start to down-regulate certain things. So probably one of the first things you'll see for comp clients that goes when they're in a pretty aggressive deficit is their sex drive, right? Because that's no longer an essential function of the body. So it doesn't need to take energy and use it for that thing. It's trying to focus on the essentials of survival.
Just
right?
for those who are just listening to us in podcast, Tyrone's getting his little pinky and moving it up and down. Yes, it's his little wiener.
Yeah, so the way I like to look at that is if someone's been below BMR for quite a long time, these things are going to start to down-regulate. So once we add in, let's say, a refeed and we give their body more fuel, then it's going to have more energy to start to upregulate these things again. And essentially, when we start to upregulate things, the body can start to make changes at a lot faster rate, right? Which is generally where we see weight can drop quite significantly.
We just have lovely clients driving by the time. Shane and Karen, you're watching this podcast.
And in most cases, body fat comes down as well, right? Because Tyrone said, you bring carbs up. If we look at cortisol and insulin, so they have an inverse relationship. So if cortisol's high, insulin's low, vice versa. So you have a big influx of carbs. We drive insulin up. We bring cortisol down. That stress response comes down. And generally, it makes it a little bit easier to get leaner. And just on that, to add another thing, this is why with super stressed out people, or as we discussed in one of our other podcasts, like very busy professionals, business people, it's not always a good thing to have them on low carb because, again, if we have a good amount of carbohydrates, it can help actually bring that stress response down and lower that cortisol that they've probably got pumping around their system.
I feel like we're a little bit passionate about this topic.
Yeah, you know what? I do think with
Carbs for the win.
We are. And the best system for carbohydrates, I think, is the
Eat 'em all.
biosignature, like the upper back fat, of an indicator of how hard you can go with carbs. Because I have found that quite accurate over the years, where if someone is below that 8 on the upper back fat, you can give them a hell of a lot of carbs.
You don't need to deserve the lick of a prune.
Yeah, that I don't agree with. Look, that's probably way too aggressive and probably took way too literal, I think. But I think that there is, besides that part, there is if they are below 8, they definitely can have a lot more carbs. And that intermediate, like you and I, for example, where we're not like super low, but we're not super high, it's kind of that 33% split is perfect.
People always have a tolerance, right? Like mine's pretty high.
We know.
I can eat a lot of carbs.
Yeah, we've seen
You're an
it.
asshole.
And I stay shredded.
Yeah, we've seen.
Yeah. You say fats make you fat, but they don't. We've pretty much covered that.
Let's unpack fat though.
Let's unpack. Well,
Because why do people think fat makes us fat?
Because it starts with the same letter.
Yeah,
Exactly,
the thing.
because it's
The
fat.
same thing.
yeah.
Let's unpack
But
the
let's-
difference between fat we consume in our diet and body fat as stored energy.
Well, it comes down to the same thing as carbohydrates. Like at the end of the day, it's energy balance, right? You consume too many calories from carbs, from fats or carbs, or protein probably increases energy. But anyways, that's another way. You eat too much calories from fats, too many calories from carbs, you're gonna get fat. It doesn't matter really which one it is. It's just at the end of the day, calories matter. But yes, obviously, then there's a whole caveat of things that go underneath it. But I think because it starts with the same thing, is people really.
Well, I think where people go wrong with it is obviously one gram of carb equals 4 calories and 1 gram of protein equals 4 calories.
What is happening with you?
My chair is constantly making me. That was funny.
Well, this is what people. Yeah, well,
But then
they
fat,
creep up.
obviously,
It creeps up.
one like my chair. One calorie of fat. So 1 gram of fat equals 9 calories, which is, I think, where some people go, if I eat 60 grams versus I'm going to eat a lot more. Obviously, you can eat double the amount of fat than you can half the amount of fat than you can carbohydrates, right? So I think that's maybe where sometimes people's perception of fat, maybe that fat makes them fat comes from. But I actually don't think that. I think it really is just as simple as if I eat fat, therefore, if I eat animal fat, then that's going to store the same fat on me. Which just
Is that like the people that think if they eat walnuts, it's going to improve brain health?
Yeah,
because it
correct.
affects
I think
their
it's the same thing.
And
Maybe.
all-
I don't know. I'm speculating here.
Where
Where
does
this
this
myth
come
comes
from?
from.
Because you just did the Enterprise Diet book. There's
Yeah.
a shameless plug for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Right?
Appreciate it. Where's your shameless plug, James?
We get it.
Nice guy. Where does it come from? I mean, you would have done. I know you've done a whole lot of research because obviously we've been here with you over the last few years, watching you do this book, and you've done research upon research.
Yep.
Did you find where this myth comes from?
Where fat makes you fat come from?
Yeah.
No, but I did find out where 3 square meals a day comes from. 3 square meals. People say you eat three square meals a day. That's generally the recommendation. People eat 3 meals a day.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, you've heard that.
I've
one.
never heard it called 3 square meals. Though.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, three square meals a day is what, and the reason why it's 3 square meals a day is because in the Navy. So before that,
In the Navy.
and it was like 1850s, right around this time, it was around that era. The Navy gave their naval officers 3 meals
On square plates.
on square plates, and that's where it came from. But before that, and then in Prince, it was referred to as in the Navy they give 3 square meals a day, and then people want to sign up to Navy to get the 3 square meals a day. But if you were really poor, then you weren't eating 3 square meals a day. You were finding scraps basically, and eating here and there. And it was like finding something. That's what it was referred to as. And obviously, the more wealthy you were, the more food you could afford and the more you could eat. But the idea of eating 3 meals a day or having a breakfast or having these kind of constructs of when we're supposed to eat are real, actually modern ways of eating, because food prior to that, culturally, it was always about relational value. In actual fact, if we were part of a tribe, or you're in your tribe and I've got my tribe, or we're families in the same tribe, for me to connect with you, we would exchange food. And food was currency a lot of the time. And if I wanted you to be part of or take part in something that was of value to me, and that we would connect and have relationships over food. So food, one of the big constructs with food is the social implications that it has. And I think now that food aspect is being transferred for drinking. So people drink a lot more and socialize with drinking rather than, hey, let's get together and make. So if you look at like wogs, like you and I, Italians, we'd have like sugo day, where we would make sauce and pasta and would eat. You've married.
I'm an Italian now.
Yeah, by marriage, huh? You'd make the sauce and you make the pasta, and that would bring the family together, and you would build the relationship. And it was a lot of those social interactions happened over food. And I think a lot of that in today's society, if you Uber Eats, tell me about your relationship with your Uber Eats driver. You don't have one, right? You know, it's already there. So a lot of the way we eat now is it's social constructs. So to come back to the aspect of why do people think fat makes you fat? Honestly, my observation of all of it, because I don't think anyone could probably tell you where it comes from, but it's publications, it's media, it's marketing, because these are headlines that sell. And if you look at all of the trends that really are in fitness and nutrition, they started with newsprint articles, like whether it was Muscle Mag, Oxygen, insert Women's Day, whatever it was that people were reading at the time. They pushed a headline that said, fat makes you fat, or fat doesn't make you fat. And you could I've got a collection of muscle mags over the years from the 80s, 90s, 2000s. If you look at the headlines, they're all more or less the same. But it's interesting when you look at those headlines in the 80s, what was being pushed and the agenda there and the agenda in the 90s. And it's all very similar, but it was all, I mean, who owns the supplement magazines? Who owns the muscle and fitness magazines? It's supplement companies. Yeah. They're putting out things to get you interested in reading, and most supplement magazines, and I keep referring to them as supplement magazines because in my head that's what they are, bodybuilding magazines and fitness magazines, they're brochures to sell supplements is essentially what those magazines are.
Well, just ads, or just pages
and,
ads. Right?
And now we don't really have that. We don't have supplement and fitness magazines because magazine for the most part is dead. What we have now is influencers replaced the fitness magazines, and influencers are paid by the same people, supplement companies. And instead of influencers instead of it being headlines, influencers are putting up these reels, and the reels are based on the same shit that they're putting in the fitness magazines, right? It's the same headlines. It's 6 ways to get your abs. It's take these supplements to burn fat. It's the same shit. So fat makes you fat, I think, is a catchy headline that makes people go, oh, well, and people are pushing a high carb, high protein diet. People do push that, right? And it is an easy sell. To answer the question, where does it come from? I think it really comes from, I think from my observation, is the companies need to just push an agenda and push something onto people as a way to grab onto and read and be interested and do another diet of the month. Because the next month, you know what the diet's going to be? Is carbs make you fat, right? And then they're going to be selling you things that block carbs.
Yeah, that's where it comes down to personal. Everybody's different at the same time. High carb, high protein, high fat, high protein, whatever else, whatever's going to be. At the end of the day, one is going to work for some people, one's going to not work for the other. People go keto and, oh my God, I lost so much weight. One, you cut out a whole food group. And two, you just probably lost a whole heap of water weight because you got no glycogen left. And you just gone flat as attack. And
you also reduced your calories.
And you reduce your calories until you started lathering cheese on your bacon, on your sausages. And then you're like, I'm putting weight back on again. Yeah, 900 calorie breakfast. Yeah.
I know we're running out of time on this episode, but I suppose to dispel the whole fat makes you fat myth, what are some reasons why fat is important for fat loss? Let's cover that so we can flip that myth around.
First one, hormone production. Really?
Yeah. Anti-inflammatory, pro-inflammatory.
Yeah. 100%.
Cholesterol,
which cholesterol then turns into our sex hormones, DHEA.
Vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin K.
Yeah,
they're all fat-soluble vitamins. Fat-soluble vitamins, A, D, K, E. If you're not eating enough fat, you're not getting those vitamins, essentially.
It's a macronutrient for a reason.
That's it. And to be fair, they're essential fatty acids. As much as carbohydrates is It's primary fuel source. It's not essential. We can survive without them.
We can.
Yeah, protein and fats are essential. And that's why, again, we have essential fatty acids. Omega-3s, brain health.
Joint inflammation.
But
even pro-inflammation, omega-6.
Eye health, immune system. You have a responsive immune system. And there's actually some studies that show omega-3s can actually improve, I think it was mobility.
Oh, really?
So having an adequate amount of...
just improving joint health, or...
Can't remember.
Oh, actually, I will add this in because I did write about this in my book as well. But if you
wrote
look
a
at...
book?
Yeah, I wrote a book. It's The Enterprise Diet. There's the shameless
That's my
plug.
plug.
There you go. Yeah, high five. Awesome. If you look at the research on fat from omega-3 perspective, so they've said, and it's been hypothesized, that the Paleolithic diet had a 1-to-1 ratio of omega-3 to omega-6. 1-to-1, right? If you look at the research, they've pointed out that the optimal dose of omega-3 to omega-6 is anywhere from basically 1 to 4. So you can have basically 4 times the omega-6 of the omega-3, right? The average diet in Western culture is 1 to 17. Right. So 1 to 17 is humongous. Like, it's a humongous amount of, and that's why people are walking around very, very, very inflamed. So to bring down that inflammation, people obviously do need to decrease the amount of fat that they're having, but more so the vegetable oils and pro-inflammatory fats,
Specific
not
types
the
of fats.
anti-inflammatory fats. And a lot of the fats, say, for example, in your vegetable oils, they're not going to contain the fat-soluble vitamins, the inflammation sequestering needed amino acids, fatty acids that are needed. So this is where you're looking at animal fats primarily that are going to be much richer in your omega-3s and your omega-6s. Although some animal fats do have omega-6 as well.
And if you don't know what the fats are, buy the book.
I go through a whole chapter
Simple, right?
explaining. There's 2 chapters. Actually, I talk a lot about vegetable oils. Whole chapter on it.
Yeah, for sure. I think as well, like, helping people understand the premise of fat loss, right? We know that the key thing is generally a calorie deficit in most instances, because body fat is essentially stored energy. So we want to be in an energy deficit to put our body in a position to have to burn that energy, which is where fat loss comes from.
Do you know how you burn fat?
Go on.
Through your breath.
There you go.
So you should just
Is that the only way?
Yeah,
Just
well,
breathe.
it's
Just breathe more.
oxidization. Just breathe more.
Yeah, 100%.
Look, Mum, I'm burning fat.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you want to find out where the antics of Tyrone Heavy Breather is,
It's when he's doing his cardio is when it is.
Yeah, actually,
Following
no,
when he's next walk.
not too much anymore.
Cardio doesn't burn fat, guys.
Yeah, you can find me Facebook, Instagram, Coach Foligno, Coach_Foligno, and then you can find me down here at Enterprise Fitness on Swan Street, Richmond.
Mr. Jamo.
Same here, James Kelly PT on Instagram, and I'll always be around Enterprise Fitness also.
And I'm Mark Tobury, owner and founder of Enterprise Fitness. You can find me at Mark Tobury, both on Instagram and on the tick of the talk.
I've actually got a new outro for you.
Oh, yeah?
My name is Mark Tobury, owner and founder of Enterprise Fitness and the author of the
Enterprise Diet.
Oh, wow.
What a promo. This guy, that's why he's the manager.
That's it.
Yeah,
All the
awesome.
plugs.
So we do have a new book out. It's called The Enterprise Diet. Check it out. It's at enterprisediet.com. It details our methods, our systems, our processes, everything that we do here at Enterprise Fitness to get the amazing results we have for thousands of clients. If you've enjoyed this podcast, make sure you subscribe. And if you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe and hit like and leave a review. Until the next show, train hard, eat well, and supplement smart.
I think we've been here for a while.
Awesome.